Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and a link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by A Plain Truth, Sleeping Warrior, Ranty, Nummy, Matrix, Mark, Jose, Arwin, and Alan. How are you all doing?
Doing good.
Hello, hello, hello.
Free Tommy Robinson.
So Anthony,
Long live La Tierra Plana.
Anthony, I think that, whether or not you're right, we need to really pull this apart, because it's we need to understand exactly how this calculation is being performed to.
Yeah, my issue is that if they're going to make an adjustment for refraction, then it makes sense that there should be a reduction for perspective.
Well, you'd have to make a reduction for perspective if you're talking about,
And Nathan, do you believe that they've already done that?
No, I don't believe they've made a reduction for perspective. I think they've co-opted it. But what I'm saying is, what they are presenting based on their presuppositions is simply what they assert you should see above the bulge. I'm not saying it's correct. I'm not saying it accounts for anything. I'm just saying that that is what they would assert. It's totally fallacious, and it's based on presupposition, and it doesn't match our world, and certainly doesn't match the photographs that have brought up this debate in regards to whether or not perspective is accounted for. It isn't, because it's been co-opted.
Right. But I'm saying it could be even worse than that, maybe. I don't know. But I'll take a look after. I'm not going to try to do it now when we're in the middle of the chat. But I think, Anthony, anyways, thank you for bringing this up, because whether or not you're right, I think it's a very interesting, important question.
Yeah.
That we need to really take a good look at and make sure that we fully understand and comprehend, and then we can come back to it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I have slightly changed my position, because originally I said it's just down to zoom, and I think that is incorrect, because I'm kind of saying that they are factoring in perspective, and that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I was listening to you guys do that when I was making coffee, and then I was like, wait a minute, is that in the, because we have to look at the actual mathematics behind the metabunk calculator, right? Which I say it's too early in the morning for me to start getting into that now, but
And you're right, and I was wrong. So in that respect, Anthony, I was incorrect.
No, sure. I mean, I get that you're just playing their argument case, and it's fine. It doesn't matter. But the way I see it is, the geometry is the starting point. They make an adjustment for refraction, but there doesn't appear to be a correction for perspective, and that really should be there. So it's I think we're being sold a massive disservice.
Yeah, but if you're right, Anthony, the thing is, if you're right, Anthony, then we have this whole other line of argumentation that can take place, right?
Yeah.
That's a whole another problem for the ballers, if you're right. And I'm not saying that you're right necessarily before I understand all the math that goes into the curve calculator. I mean, I've looked at it before, but just to fully flesh out, what kind of projection does that represent? Because if you're right, or if, what you're suggesting is true, then man, they're in a lot more trouble.
Yeah, I agree. The fucked, more than fucked. The fucked.
No, they're more than fucked. That's basically going to be a game over scenario if that's the case.
There are at least 2 videos on YouTube that deal with this that I remember looking at about a year ago. I'll try and find them.
So the math is it's basic stuff to figure this out. What if you just put your mind to it? Like I say, I'm just not inclined to start doing it right at this moment, but we should be able to figure it out.
We're not live now, are we not?
Yeah, we're live.
Yeah, we're live now.
Oh, right, okay.
Just
But thank
posting
you
it to
for
Facebook.
raising the issue. That's all I'm saying. Because I think it's a good one.
And just for those that are not aware, whilst we were in the break, Ranty pulled the victim card because he felt that his point was hijacked. So, in the interests of fairness and Ranty's victimness, Ranty, would you like to carry on if you feel as though you were deprived?
Indeed, yes, that's very kind
That's a
of
bit mean.
you.
I was
Was it
really
mean?
enjoying your demonstration, actually, Ranty.
I was enjoying it, but I think it was the opposite way around. I think Ranty hijacked our point or my point. But anyway, who cares? Ranty, you have the floor.
Okay, give me a moment to re-find where I was exactly up to. A second. Ah, there we go. Right. Right. Okay. Right.
Yeah,
Let me
you're
know
on.
when I'm sharing, Nate.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, I was on St. Anne's Beach this time, and I'm looking over at these wind turbines I'll show you here. So this is where I was filming from, down here. And I'm looking over at, firstly, I look at with these wind turbines to the left, then there's a rather large gap, and then there's some very evident turbines, which are clearly these ones, and then the last two lines, which the last two turbines will be this one, and then you have the platform. So the platform, and then you'd have the two turbines, just to prove that this is Barrow that we're looking at. So I'll go into the video. This is looking at the other turbines to the left. As I'm moving across to the right now, keep going, and then I come up to Barrow in a moment. So the next ones that I come up to, this is the gap. Then I'll come up to Barrow wind turbines, which are just starting now. And if I press play, I'll just pause it in a minute. Just show you where that platform was in the last two turbines. So yeah, so just pausing it now. So there's the platform here, and there's the last two turbines to the right. So if I carry on moving, and you don't see any more turbines. So exactly as I've just said, that's exactly what you'd expect to see for looking at Barrow from that position, which means that all those turbines were visible. So the furthest one here was 21.25 miles away. So if I do a quick curvature calc on that, let's go to metric 21.25. Viewer height 6 feet. Hidden should be 221 feet. If I do that in metric, that'll be 67.7 meters. And if I go to the Barrow wind farm, this is what it tells you the development is. The hub height, which is the thing in the center, 75 meters. It's not center, it's actually the, I'll show it you on an image actually. Give us a sec. Where are we? This one. So where these little lines are, that's the hub. There's a hub. This is a screenshot from the video. So essentially, the curve calcs say that right on this hub line is where the horizon should be, and everything else should be hidden. So this is the argument that from St. Anne's Beach at a distance of 21.2 miles, the hub should be just on the horizon. Well, clearly the hub isn't on the horizon. Clearly we're seeing all of the wind turbines over this sort of distance. And I'll show you the video again if you like, just to scroll through these turbines. Every turbine that you're going to watch now is the Barrow ones. So if I press play now, you'll be looking at the Barrow wind turbines, and all these, you know, up to the hub should be gone. The way it is. It's just what the curve calcs say. And if you want me to show you where I was exactly, this is me on the beach. You can see that the darker sand here is where the tide comes into. The lighter sand in the background is where the tide hasn't actually got to. I've actually walked out 2.5 times further than the wind than the length of the pier. And I'll show you where I zoomed into. This St. Anne's Pier here. So again, smashing it around the Fylde coast, you shouldn't be seeing any of this. And what's interesting as well, I wanted to show you this this other image. where are we? It's this one here. Now, I did a bit like I did with Anthony when he did his Isle of Man stuff. And I put a composite together of the turbines on the left. And I added up all the turbines. I counted them all. And essentially, there's more turbines in this view than, I'll show you here, than, clear that off. You see this west of Duddon Sands here? There's 101 turbines in this, and I think I counted 146.
Sorry, Ranty, sorry to interrupt. It's just a square on a screen to me, so you said, do you see this farm? Well, no. What do you mean?
Oh, right. What do you mean? This wind turbine? Right. There's different wind farms. So, like the Barrow wind farms, their hub height is 75 meters. So when you come across to the west of Duddon Sands wind farms, the one on the left, I think their hub height is 90 meters. So the different designs and different turbines. So when we looked at this west of Duddon ones here, which is in this section, I think there's 101 turbines in this. And when I put the composite together, I think I counted 146, which essentially proves that we're probably seeing a fair amount of these turbines in the background as well. Now, the conditions were pretty nasty. I mean, I had to bring out those turbines in the background. You know, I had to sort of like play around with the contrasts and what have you. But what's that essentially doing is saying that I was seeing a distance of over 30 miles. 31.3 miles to the other turbines in the distance. Now, if I do the curvature calcs on that, and I put them in here, go to the Imperial and do 31.3. So hidden should be 534 feet. So those turbines that I was seeing in the background, there's more turbines than there was one in the foreground. So I was seeing the ones in the background that should be hidden behind 535 feet of curvature. Now, those turbines aren't that high. So on this image, this composite that I put together...
Sorry, how high are they? How high is each turbine?
Well, the ones in the foreground are 90 meters to the hub. So...
What's that feet?
Sorry? Well, you see this here? You see this little...
About just under 300 feet. Is that to the hub height?
Yes.
So how high are the blades?
I think the blades have got a rotor diameter of 120 meters, so they're 60 meters long.
60 meters.
I think that's right. Hang on, let me just double check on that. The easiest thing to pick out, obviously, is the hub. Let's see, west of Duddon Sands. So if I click on west of Duddon Sands here, and I scroll down, rotor diameter, all right, yes, so the hub height was 90 meters, the rotor diameter is 120 meters. So to the top, that was 150 to the very highest point it could go.
It's about 500, so about 500 feet in total.
Yes.
Right. And what was can you bring the curve calcs back up? Sorry, I've forgotten the figures that they presuppose. Bring up the fantasy ball maths again.
Fantasy ball maths, 31.3 miles, view height.
So they're completely gone. 34
yes.
feet, completely obscured by Earth curve.
Yeah.
According to presuppositional fantasy ball math religion.
And there's no denying that you're actually seeing, there's the hub, you know, there's the stem, you know, there's the blades going around.
Hold on. You're slightly misrepresenting your own argument now, because you're talking about the ones in the background.
Yes.
But these aren't there.
Angular size difference. Angular size difference.
You're talking about the ones in the background, though, because you were just pointing at the hub, so that I just can't let you get away with that. You're talking about these.
Let me do the ones in the foreground. I'll do the nearest ones to them.
Okay.
So this would be the very nearest one. So whatever the biggest one would look like is 21 miles away. Let me do get off of that. 21 miles. 21 miles. Metric, it'd be easier to do it. So hidden 65 meters, right? So we know that the hub height is at 90 meters.
Sorry, so pop it back in Imperial.
Imperial, right. 216 feet hidden to the very first one. So the largest one of these on this entire, it will be, let me see if I can find it. It'll be the one that sticks out the most. I would probably say this one. This one looks the largest. It would probably be the nearest one. There would be the hub here. There's the blades. But all of this, you know, all the ones in the background, there's more. What we're seeing is we are seeing more turbines in this composite than there is in the west of Duddon Sands wind farm, which means that we're seeing the wind farm behind it, which has to be these turbines here. The Walney Phase 2. So if I do the, let's see what the Walney Phase 2 is actually. Walney Phase 2. So we are seeing some of these turbines. I would never know which ones they are. Hub height essentially the same, 90 meters, 120 meters, rotor diameter. So all gone.
Very cool, Ranty.
And this is obviously the Barrow one. This is the easiest one to just say, right, okay, the height of the hub, which is here, is where the horizon should be. And clearly we're seeing way, way, way more than that. In fact, we're seeing it all.
Cool. Is that the end of your presentation, Ranty?
Depends how much you want me to show you.
No, what else you got?
Well, I went to, where did I go to?
Show us some bulge.
Well, I'm trying to show you some bulge. Here we have, it's really difficult to see this, but I went to Southport yesterday. And we do see the turbines in the background. They are there. They're very difficult to see. I mean, I didn't even know I was picking these up because it looked like it was a complete whitewash. But I was looking at this boat, and it was a long, 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 long way away. But you can definitely see the wind turbines now. So you shouldn't be able to see those turbines at all. Here's me zooming out. I mean, my elevation was about 3 feet here, and you can't even see where that boat was originally. Here's my next video. I'll show you the same thing again. Zooming in, zooming in, zooming in. I'll just see a boat on the horizon. We can see the wind turbines behind it. All of them should be gone. I mean, the distances to talking to these is insanity distances. Let me show you through. I'll show you from over here, Southport. So this is where I was filming from. So the fact that we were seeing those wind turbines from an elevation of around about 4 feet. Let's go straight ahead. We're looking 26 miles away. 26 miles to the first ones. And we're seeing those wind turbines in the image. I know it's pretty, you can't see it probably very clearly, but I can see it on my monitor. Can you see them there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know if you can see him. Can you see him, Nathan?
I'm waiting for it to catch up on the iPad just because it's got a much higher pixel density. I can't see it on my projector, I won't lie, I can't. But
right, okay.
When it catches up on the iPad, maybe. I'll let you know in about 2 minutes.
The thing was, the visibility was only supposed to be, I think it was 16 kilometers, which when I actually got there, it was understandable because it looked like a complete white mist on the horizon. So, well, just out to sea, you couldn't see anything virtually. And the fact that the camera did pick this up gives me hope that on a better day with better clarity, these turbines, I mean, Anthony lives near there.
Now it's caught up. Sorry. Yes, it's caught up on the iPad now, and I can, with better resolution, see them. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely see them. I can definitely see them on mine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 26 miles away we're seeing these. There's the boat. And you can see how far away this boat is when I zoom out. I mean, it disappears completely. Vanished now. Gone. Flat as. Around here it is flat as. I'd like to do some observations elsewhere if I get the chance, but we'll see.
Looks extremely
Thank you, Ranty.
It is
in a horizontal sense. It's like a perfect flat line there.
Flat as a pancake. So anyway, yeah, I finished my this is just the observations I've been doing on the last 3 or 4 days. So, you know, I mean, I've been traveling all over to try and get these proofs. So I was just happy to get them displayed and show them off because they are pretty awesome. And it is like a full-time job if you think about it. I mean, it's taking me. I mean, when I went to where I've been to, bloody hell, Southport, 10 hours in total, going there, getting filming, staying till later, doing some more filming. You know.
Yeah, you're smashing it at the moment, Ranty. No one's going to deny that.
The roof said he wanted to come in.
I think we've got a full panel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, we've got 10 people.
We haven't revisited the under the refraction for a while, though, have we? Under the refraction zone.
Do you guys want Ruif in? I can drop.
Yeah, we're waiting for what's his face? We're waiting for the Rumpus to come up with some bullshit explanation for Bendy Light, and until he does that, it kind of stops there because we need to see how much he's fudged, falsified, manipulated, and lied about the maths, and it's down to Rumpus. And until he does, there's no real conversation. Yes, flat, and there's no explanation from the ballers until it gets dealt with.
Well, essentially, it should be. I should be. If you look up refraction on the wiki page, I think it says that under very, very extreme circumstances, you get things like superior mirages and stuff like this. No, you see it every single day that you go out filming. Every single day. Now, if I'm going out and I'm filming and I'm seeing all this flat everywhere, right?
I agree.
Then that means that the refraction index must be off the chart every day I go out to see these distances.
Yeah, it's always flat.
Yeah, exactly. It is always flat. If you can see it, and the thing is, there's no correlation to whether it's a sunny day or not, because that doesn't help visibility. But when you've got good visibility, you see a long way. And it just so happens, I think, that they've co-opted the good visibility conditions to be what they would call refraction. So, yeah.
It's a very good segue because over the weekend when I went to St. Bees, when we arrived, it was overcast, fairly crummy weather, and there was the Isle of Man. I was like, this makes no sense. It's technically not good conditions to see it. And then as the weather cleared, as it got more what you would call better, the visibility got worse. It was the absolute inverse of what I expected. It was bizarre.
I've started using, there's let me find what it's called actually, because it tells you on this site what the visibility is going to be like. So AccuWeather. So when you go on AccuWeather and you click the hourly, it tells you what the visibility is expected to be like per hour. And I've found that I've been following this now for the last month, and they're so accurate with what you can actually see when you're looking over water. It's unbelievable. If they say 16 miles, you can see Barrow. If they say 12 miles, you won't see Barrow. Just as simple as that. Yeah. So they know. They kind of know what this visibility is.
Well, we calculated it, do you remember, with Chris Monk, when we had to work out when we were getting the scale of how much of the Isle of Man we could see. At the time, we all thought it was Ireland, and we had to calculate the scale of the camera, and that's how we ended up basically landing on the correct scale and saying this is how far, based on the conditions, the camera could see on that day. I think it was like 37 miles. I can't remember the exact figure, but that was how far you could see on that day in any direction that weather was permitting you to see that far. It may be different if you turned 180 degrees and looked in the opposite direction, but on that day, that's how far you could see.
Yeah, and I also think with looking at Barrow, and I've gone down the coast, and when I actually caught it from, it was, where was it? It was the end of where the lifeboat station is, on the way to St. Anne's. So when I went there, it was just a sliver on the horizon. It was still, you could still identify that this was the buildings because you had this, you know, there was the same makeup distances between each, the same white rooftops and all, but they were all compressed, really, really small. Now that's sort of bears in that's very similar to what Anthony showed when he went down to a foot and saw the northern part of the Isle of Man. It was very compressed. And I think that's what happens. The lower, obviously, you go low down. That's what's going to happen. You know, I mean, it's just the angular resolution will change it to the point of being just a sliver. You know, and people have got to take it on trust that it, you know, you are actually seeing the entirety of that.
Any comments?
So I think
I left a pause for anyone else to jump in, but no one did.
I just think there's a limit of it. There obviously is going to be a limit to how far I can see those barrow buildings, and it's not due to a curvature. It's simply due to it's going to become so small with even though I've got a good camera that's got good, you know, it can see a long way. There's going to come a limit where you won't see it. So 25 miles seems about the most you're ever going to see a building that's 200 feet high from an elevation of 3 or 4 feet. So that's about it, really.
I don't know if I'd agree with you, Ranty. We're proving ourselves wrong day after day in terms of what you can see at what altitude. So I wouldn't put your stamp on that at all, mate.
Well, maybe. Yeah. I mean, I've only been to this location a couple of times, so. But yeah, I mean, it is still a sliver on the horizon. You could still make out it was the buildings, but you couldn't get any definition out of them. There's no definition to be had out of them.
Hey guys, I'm gonna give my space up to Chocolate Sane, who said he wanted to come back in. It's way too hot for me here anyway to basically contribute anything. So
The problem is that the question of what's causing the obstruction at the horizon is not fully understood, right?
so see you guys later.
See you later, Arwen.
Yeah, Arwen.
Yeah, good footage by the way, Ranty.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Keep them coming. Bye guys.
The problem is that there, you know, both sides, or I mean, it's still suppositional arguments about what is causing the obstruction at the horizon, right? Like most people say refraction, but there's no real solid evidence that refraction has anything to do with it at all. So if we don't understand, you know, trying to understand like what's causing that problem has to do with, you know, understanding, or like, you know, trying to understand why we're seeing what we're seeing in a given photograph is going to eventually require to understand the cause of the obstruction in different conditions.
That's why we go out and we do these experiments. I mean, what we're seeing is it doesn't really matter. You know, it doesn't have to be a nice, warm, clear day. You can see it at high tide, low tide, windy conditions. You know,
yeah, that's what because I think it has more to do with the surface conditions of the water than it has to do with the air conditions. Not that it has nothing to do with the air conditions, but
no swearing, ranting. You say experiment.
Yeah, it's observations. They're not experiments.
Okay.
But I'm just saying that, you know, I think that we've got to suspend this assumption that refraction is the cause of the distortion band at the horizon or the obstruction at the horizon, because that might not be the case, in which case it's a whole other problem.
Indeed.
You guys hear me?
But I think we've kind of had this like idea of refraction like heavily pushed on us by the globe side, right? And we've kind of adopted it and tried to adapt it to our own understanding of this photography and of these observations. But we should really, you know, question the most fundamental assumptions about what's been given to us by science about, you know, how refraction works and what its relevance is within air, within a medium, and you know, I haven't seen convincing evidence that the kind of refraction that they're claiming is even possible in air.
This
right?
isn't
They're always
brought to us
wanting
by,
to compare it.
It's not brought to us by science, though, is it? It's brought to us by Metabunk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the thing is, Anthony started on this about a year ago, and I was getting bored of it about a year ago. This 7/6, yeah, he was going on and on and on about it, right? And honestly, it drove me nuts. But now I know why he went on about it, because it is bullshit.
Yeah.
And that was why I wanted Rumpus in yesterday, because when he came in, regardless of what he said about what should or shouldn't be seen, I wanted to see how much he was going to manipulate and bend the light. Because regardless of whether there's evidence or not to support it, he made the claim, which is prominent, that, yeah, this is based on not having an atmosphere, not having an atmosphere. And I was like, yeah, but have you looked at the refractive index of air? It's essentially, for all intensive mathematical purposes, a vacuum. The discrepancy is minuscule. And we're talking thousandths of 1 unit difference between a vacuum and air. And that gives you the scale, which is negligible. And that's why I keep citing the word negligible. And now I've got another authority for it, in addition to the other, the high school kids report that says negligible. Well, they don't like that because it's done by high school kids. Well, now I've got another citation for the word negligible in the context of atmospheric refraction, and it references the coefficient on a different scale, but the effect of it is the net effect is still the same. The effects of refraction in the atmosphere are negligible because we essentially live from the perspective of light. We essentially live in a vacuum. Light doesn't bend, not the way that they say. It deviates from straight, but in all directions, and it's minuscule. That's why I wanted to get onto the refractive index of light. We didn't get there yesterday, but we'll get to it if he ever shuts up and makes the conversation move forward.
Oh yeah, and Teen Foyer, he can suck my big fat balls.
Can we keep the... Yeah, come on.
No, well, he's been...
Who's Teen Foyer?
Teen Foyer, he's one of Dell's lackeys.
Why can he suck your...
Because every time I've gone in there, he bans my accounts for no reason, just for talking.
Oh, he's probably the guy that keeps muting me. He keeps timing me out for like nothing. So I can't go in Dell's anymore because I like to be active in the chat.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was enjoying listening to Dell. He was giving it what for, and I'm like, yeah, go on, mate. And then next thing, I'm banned. I'm like, are you taking the piss again? So I come on a different channel because he's done it before. He's just a knob jockey.
Yeah, he puts me off going there, to be honest.
Anyway, that's my rant over with him.
Ruhif says in chat, watch my videos, champ. Chump, you think you can make the radius of the Earth apparent and huge to negate the effect of the curve that you guys believe that we're on? I won't be watching any of your videos, chump.
I watched your video, Ruhif. Good on you, mate. Keep them up. More videos, please.
Pardon?
I was encouraging him. I'm always for... I just remember about 3 years ago being in a position where we had people like Sly Sparkane who didn't make videos. They just came and trolled your chat. And I'm like, make a video, make your point in a video. Don't just come and troll mine in the comments. Actually, dedicate what you think to video. And Ruhif has gone and done that. And I admire that. As a YouTuber, good on you, Ruhif. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I'd rather have a baller that is active and goes out and does stuff than just talks a lot of stuff.
I think what's happened with Ruhif, he's got
offline. Oh, we're back on. We're back.
Minor issue. Give me a sec. It's back on now. Don't worry.
Ruhif's gone out and he's bought a dumpy level, and I think what he's realised is that he can't make the light bend as much as what's necessary to explain how flat the Earth appears to be if we live on a ball. So what he's done is he's resorted to, instead of making the light bend, he's now making the radius bend. So he's calling it an apparent radius, and he's just increasing it by percentages to make it look flat, and then claiming that's the effect of the refraction on the day. Which, yeah, okay, if you're going to do that, that's fine. But where's the science and the data that you're manipulating to get that? You can't just change the size of the Earth; it's fixed. You can't change the size of the Earth and call it an apparent radius, because that's called pseudoscience. There's no evidence to support that. That's even. It's ridiculous. What you're doing is you realize you can't bend the light, so you're making the Earth much bigger and calling it looming, and it's like, well, that's called dishonest.
Well, how come the File Coast completely flat?
How come what?
The File Coast is completely flat.
Oh, because the apparent size of the radius has changed that much that it's now appearing to be flat, and it's just coincidental that it's just the value you'd expect to be on a flat plane.
But do you agree that in order to get those images that we see from NASA, right, and what have you, that all oceans must curve?
Yeah.
Right. So if all oceans must curve, then how come the File Coast, the oceans in the File Coast do not curve at all? Because I've been filming every single day now for the last month and they've not seen a single bit of curve.
Well, we must be on a flat spot.
Yeah, but that isn't what we see with NASA. You can't go to, yeah, if you go to NASA's images, it's not gonna, it doesn't show it like a golf ball. It shows you in a nice round, all the water curving around. Now that isn't what we're seeing, and we're talking about a huge expanse of water here. We're talking what, a good 70 miles or so from one side to the other. So it's quite a substantial part of the world that is flat.
Ranty, there's a chump in chat that wants you to watch his videos called Ruhif. He says, at Ranty, watch my videos, champ.
Champ,
well,
not chump. There you go, champ.
Let's call him chump.
No, he's called me champ.
Yeah, but he's asking you to watch his videos. He's not calling you a champ because he thinks you're a champion. He's just being polite because he wants you to watch his videos. Well, all he's going to do is make the Earth appear to be flat with the radius.
Right, but I'm not seeing it, right? Because he believes what NASA spews out, right? So NASA spews out an image, he believes it, right? Well, if that's the case, how can he now be saying, okay, well, I'll let you have some kind of flatness in the Far Coast, in the Irish Sea? It doesn't make any. It can't be subjective. Water has to curve.
Well, I honestly don't know how people in the ball camp can accept that it seems to be flat everywhere, but, well, Pontchartrain must be making up for all that lacking curve, right?
I mean, look at the image that Nathan's showing now. Where's the curve there?
I don't see an image. Hang on.
What I see is maybe Ruhev and Rumpus, for example, they want to create a new just so story, theory, and they want to get peer review, maybe get into a paper on some scientific website so people can cite them and they can get a new story going on. Like the string theory, like Michio Kaku, they want to make a breakthrough, so they want to make a new story about how light works and the apparent radius and stuff like that. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, but the problem with that theory is that they get peer reviewed by their peers every day with us, and we attack them for their nonsense. So they're already being peer reviewed. They're just not being peer reviewed by people that hold their willies. But ultimately, if they're trying to do that, science will agree with them because of consensus. The scientific consensus will support them if they're pushing the official narrative. But if you go out there and present a scientific journal saying that, hey, we can see stuff that we shouldn't see, why is this? And then point out that the refraction of light follows the Fermat's principle on the trajectory of light, which claims that it deviates from straight minuscule amounts, and it takes the path that takes the least amount of time to get from A to B. And nowhere in that principle does it talk about the curvature of the Earth. It talks about straightness. And you try putting that through the official scientific process on peer review, that ain't going to get published anywhere, is it?
You guys think that this is going to get to a point where the body of science is going to have to start responding?
No.
They're going to have to say something?
No, because we don't have enough of a voice. There's only a small pocket in a small part of the internet. Because everybody else is asleep, it would take people to wake up for that to become an issue.
I don't agree. I do not agree. I mean, look at that. Look at what was it ITV this morning? What percentage of people said that they believed that the Earth was flat? Was it 20% or something?
It was about 35,000.
They ran a new poll.
Yeah, but the polling is not necessarily inaccurate because the people who are motivated to respond to the poll are not necessarily going to be an accurate ratio, represent an accurate ratio of what all people think, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
but
well,
it's still crediting.
Statistics are not like news gathered statistics are not a credible source of information as to people's, overall, if we were to include every individual, what their
Yeah, but to be fair, that's not a fair counter because the people that still voted are still credible. They are in part of the poll,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying they don't represent the real ratios of the entire population and what they think. So it's not a very important statistic. It's more just a kind of sensationalized statistic for the audience.
okay, well, look at it this other way then. Look how many more people are going out and doing research. Look at FE Core, for instance. Look at
yeah, but the problem is we have no means of applying pressure to the body of science, to the science of authority.
Correct.
I think we will when we become a tidal wave of information that we keep putting out. People will go out and do experiments throughout, not just the UK, but all over the world. And eventually, there will be a big portion of the internet in YouTube that people will eventually, when they go on conspiracy theories, are going to get hit with, look at the flat Earth, look at the flat Earth. Because
they have been silently. I'm sorry. They have been silently and slowly responding, because when the Isle of Man observation was being done, that you mistakenly pointed to Ireland, the Google Earth has been changed like in real time, because one day was one thing you could see and the other day was another one. So they have been observing and they have been tweaking around stuff.
Yeah, and don't forget Metabunk was changed twice. He added the pixels on the x-axis, which now all the ballers have to accept is there, but they all claim that, well, it's minuscule. Yeah, but it's measurable in a variety of ways or in various ways. So it's not that minuscule, is it? If according to your worship, right? So that was the one change, and the other change that he made was, I said, so why is it that you use the phrase in the apparent radius of the Earth when it should be an actual radius of the Earth? And he removed the word apparent to strengthen the claim that he was making. And I was like, right. So I shouldn't really have told him it because he changed it as a result of it. They are watching and they are changing what's happening.
The MIT paper they took off you.
Yeah, that was the other thing. So M. Scott Veitch, the son of an astronaut that Daddy lied to, he came on and I was citing the refraction contexts from two different papers. And he didn't like it because it goes against the official narrative. And I challenged him I said, well, put in a complaint and see what happens. And laughed it off, thinking that it wouldn't go anywhere. And then the following day, one of the two papers was removed. And then the second day, the second paper was removed. And I thought, no way, M. Scott Veitch is somehow doing that, because no, it's just not a coincidence that the two documents that I relied on and still cite from today that I have copies. Thanks, guys. But and credit to Arwin because he had one of them that I didn't have. But ultimately, these documents were removed, and it's like, well, how is this even happening? This is not a coincidence.
Yeah, the gaslighting.
Yeah, yes, that's exactly what they're doing.
But the more stuff we put out, the more times that all these observations that we're doing, Nathan doing his daily chat, his daily, release of new information and taking that debate to other people, eventually it will catch on. And it only took me 15 minutes to have a chat with an old friend of mine who, from originally saying, oh, you're not a flat earther, are you? To saying, well, if that's the way it is, I'll look into it. Simply because I said to him, well, look, you can see these wind turbines every day from your house. Half of them should be missing, right? And then I left him to think about that. So this is all it takes. It's just a little seed of doubt for somebody to start looking into it. It's what started me off.
Yeah, I do agree with Nathan when he said that they've hijacked the maths on perspective and passed it off as curve. He may not have worded it that way, but they've definitely hijacked perspective, and it appears that they are calling it curve, but actually it's not. It's literally it's an optical effect that sometimes supports them, usually doesn't. Yet somehow they all believe boats go over the horizon, and I just find that Dawn pushes that as true, and I'm like, no, it doesn't. Like once or twice I've seen it, but usually it just fades to black and you can't see it because the thickness of the atmosphere stops you from seeing indefinitely, right? We don't have bionic eyes, but they don't go behind no curve.
Ranty showed it. So Ranty it was part of that demonstration where he showed X and Y axes and the apparent curvature on the Y axis. But then he mapped it all out with perspective and showed that it matched the maths perfectly.
Yeah. And then prior to that, I'd shown on one occasion, I went and found what appeared to be boats behind the horizon, and it was the exception to the rule. All the time I go and do observations, I've never once seen any boat dropping behind the curve the way that they push it. I've only ever seen it once, and it was the exception. Every other time I've gone, they just get shimmered out, and they get blurred, and they get fuzzy, and they get vague, wishy-washy, and then eventually you can't see them anymore because they've merged into the background, like a bit like Homer Simpson coming out the bushes. But you know, like when Man United win, Homer Simpson comes out the bushes, and then when Man United lose, he goes back into the bushes. That's what it seems to be like with the boats.
Okay.
Yeah, they definitely hijack perspective. 'Cause, I mean, think about it. Perspective is everything. Perspective is how we see. So if they can literally tell us and give us the math on how we see, how we perceive the world, then they're the ones in control.
Okay, I just want to make a note that I'm looking at the Metabunk math now, and I think that Anthony, actually, they are taking that into consideration. The perspective aspect.
Do you want to quantify how? Because I can't see it myself.
Well, I'm saying, I think that based on, okay, I don't know, it's a bit complicated to explain, but it's that in the when they're calculating the amount of the target that's like the obscured, what do they call it in the thing again?
The hidden.
The hidden. When they're calculating the hidden, they're using the square root of the height, like they're calculating it as the square root of the
drop.
Of the drop, yeah. So that would. So
yeah, but that's not part of the observation of the thing that's now shrinking. What that's doing is applying it. The way they apply that is that on the mountain of 1,000 feet in height at 38 miles, they're classing the mountain as 1,000 feet, as though it was in front of you when they apply it against it. They're not reducing the size of the mountain based on the 38 feet. They're accounting for it with the drop, but they're not accounting for it with the subject.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to look at it a little closer. It just seems like that. Sorry, I'm still. My brain is not fully functioning well yet in the morning, but yeah. Anyways, I should have been a bit more definitive before I spoke up, I guess.
That's fair enough. You're looking at it on the fly. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. When arseholes come along and say, you said this while you were investigating it, it's like, well, so what? Here's the actual position.
Yeah, and that's the glory of saying, well, you know what, we got the island observation wrong. Yeah, so what? We didn't know what we were looking at, and we asked you guys to help, right?
Yeah.
So we got to the conclusion in the end.
Making mistakes if you're making honest mistakes, right?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter if there's a mistake as long as you admit. But the ballers never admit. They never move on from this. They never accept that mountain should be basically gone. Yeah. And in fact,
that's because it isn't about the truth for them.
Correct. And again, I'm going to reassert the position that mountain should be gone because A, they're not taking into account the perspective reduction in size of the mountain, but B, that bulge is going to be bigger than the amount of drop on the mountain relative to perspective because of perspective. The mountain's further away, but the bulge is double the height.
Let me help you out, Nummy. Can you share my screen, Nathan? I know I showed this on the last Hangout, but this is exactly what you're trying to say is that these, for instance, are all the same height going down this road, but due to perspective, at some point, as they're getting smaller and smaller and smaller, there becomes a point that you can't see it.
Get us something nice to eat. Some snickety snacks.
So this is the perspective argument. The perspective argument is here. We know that these lights are all the same height, similar distance apart on a straight road, but at some point they'll go so small that you won't see them. And that is the curvature calcs almost to a T. And
yeah,
I worked that out. I worked this out with the wind turbines.
It's not really the part of it we're questioning, but yeah, you're right. I get that.
So what they're essentially saying is with the wind turbines, for instance, there will come a point that at, say, 25 miles, you shouldn't actually see the wind turbine. That is also the same angular size change per mile that would also make it a dot on the horizon.
Yeah, I agree. I agreed with you when you did it with the wind turbines, and I agree with you now. It's something that's been... It's one of those things. Phuket Word often describes this in his videos, and he can sum it up in about 30 seconds. Just perspective.
The problem is, though, ballers only look at baller videos generally. I mean, it's like when Dawn said, I would only accept it if a baller told me it. And I'm like, really? I mean, is that not just a perfect definition of, like, conformity bias?
Yeah, that was honestly a weird conversation with Dawn, because I've never heard anybody really express themselves that way. Like, I'll agree if a baller agrees. Like, what the hell is that? Where is your own
Yeah, I said I felt sorry for him when he said that.
What the hell's going on?
He said,
no
well,
independent thinking at all.
What's going on is kind of being honest in a way. He's admitting to being a total and utter sheep.
Yeah.
And I'll give him credit for being honest, but like you almost want to help the guy, like, dude.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. I felt pity for him.
Wrong?
Exactly, I felt pity.
And I felt the same. And to be honest, when I said it felt like there had been a death, that's true, because you have Ruhif on one hand that is deliberately manipulating mathematics to try and present a world that appears to be flat as curved, but flat really. And then you have Dawn on the other hand that sees Ruhif doing this and seeing that, well, just do a bit of maths, and if Ruhif says it's okay, then I'll accept it. So you've got Ruhif making it, you've got Dawn Treader accepting it, and you've got everybody else in the panel right now looking at these guys thinking, this is the reason why we're in this mess in the first place.
Am I still sharing, Nath?
You are?
I am, right, because I believe we've talked about this. I haven't showed it now.
You can't start off with saying I believe.
No, I believe this was the best image I've ever taken.
Oh, right, okay. I'll let you have that one.
Still not in focus.
Is it not? Okay. Well, this is from 1 foot, and I'm holding it at my ankles, free hand, and I'm looking across at Barrow, some 18 miles away.
Hello.
So it might not be the best in your opinion, but when you can see the refraction layer here going up, and you can see it all the way along, and you can see the sand dunes at the bottom, we're seeing shore to shore. And this is yet to be debunked. And it will never get... This is the best picture I ever took.
I put this up as a mirror and called it the finest flat earth evidence to date.
I think Don was like the point Don was trying to make, like he wanted to hear flat earth evidence from someone who wasn't like a biased flat earther or something like that. I think that's the point he's trying to make. That's why he wanted to hear what a ball earther had to say, because they weren't biased towards the flat earth.
Yeah, but by saying it like that makes it sound as though what he said, you're making the same point that we're saying. He will only accept it from people that he agrees the bias with.
Yeah, because I think like he can't accept information from someone like you, Riley, because like you have the presupposition that the earth is flat, right? So you're like, all your investigation and research has a bias to it, and he just wanted like an unbiased opinion.
I don't think that's true.
I don't think that's true either. I mean, I think it's more the case that we're asking him to do his own research and come to his own conclusions, rather than saying, this is our conclusion, and forcing it upon him. We're saying, what conclusions do you draw from this, Dawn? And his answer is, I'll wait till other people's conclusions come, regardless of which side it's on.
How can Riley have a presupposition to thinking it's flat when we're all taught that it's a ball anyway?
It's like in history, right? Like history is a debated subject, and you know there's two sides to the story, right? And the truth is somewhere when like both of the sides agree. That's what we can determine to be true if both sides agree on something.
No, but that's consensus reality, P. That's called a consensus reality. That's not what makes reality.
That's how you discern the truth.
No, that's
because
not.
People have biases. Like each side who wrote the history had a bias on how the history was. So when the biases like agree, that's where we get close to the truth. I think that's what Don was getting at.
Not
No.
necessarily.
No, that's not what Dawn was
total
getting at.
nonsense.
Dawn was saying that he dismisses our evidence because it's come from us, and he'll only accept it if somebody like Ruhif tells him it's right.
But I've got to get this in. I'm
Because you guys
fundamentally.
are biased.
No, but this idea that we're biased, I mean, the way that I got into this whole topic is by trying to debate flat earthers as a globe earther, right? So I had a bias towards the globe earth, and then upon closer examination of the evidence, I was forced by intellectual honesty to switch my position. So to say that I have some inherent bias towards flat earth is demonstrably incorrect, at least in my case. And I think that's the case for most everyone here.
Well, you're wrong. And you're wrong about yourself.
That's the case for everybody. You're taught in school that.
Yeah, you're wrong
fact.
about if you think you're unbiased, I mean, you're probably the most
P.
biased
Mars.
person I've ever met in my life. Then
P. Mars.
Okay.
P. Mars.
no one is unbiased. You're ridiculous. You're a ridiculous
Are we not
person.
taught in school?
I
that
guess
the
you're
Earth is a globe?
it's early in the morning, so your brain's still numb. So I'll go use it on you.
P-Mars, let me ask you: if we're biased, right? What are we biased towards? Because I don't particularly adopt any model. I don't. Think
Yeah, you're biased towards the flat Earth. You don't like all the evidence you guys present is evidence for a globe, but because you're so biased, you say it's flat Earth.
It's the lack of evidence of the globe. That's what makes it.
There isn't a lack of evidence.
Hold on, one at a time. Don't let P come in and trigger everybody. One at a time.
Trying to
what am I
One at a time, please.
way above your pay grade.
The fact that we think the Earth is flat does not necessarily indicate that our position is bias, right?
What are we biased in favor of?
Here we go. This nutbag.
Yeah, you can laugh all you want, but your logic is very broken, sir.
Hang on, what's the answer? What are we biased in favor of?
Obviously, the flat Earth.
Right, but we don't know that it's
You're
flat.
trying to prove, like a scientist doesn't try and prove his hypothesis, right?
And we're
Like
not trying to prove that.
You are.
It's absurd something. And
That's exactly what a scientist would
You
do.
guys are
Sorry, a scientific experiment would be a expression of a hypothesis, P. So yeah, that's precisely what you're doing when you do science. Just to get that in, because what you asserted was total and utter nonsense.
You're projecting again.
It's not
Yeah,
what am I
you're
projecting? I don't do research. I don't do experiments.
So then what are you talking about?
How are
I'm
you
not
so
you
sure
guys.
that the Earth is a globe then?
But P thinks a truth is something that's been decided upon by agreement between parties that are a disagreement, and when they come to a compromise, that's the truth. Nothing could be further from reality, P. That's a consensus reality.
That he argues from a
I didn't
consensus.
say that.
You know, you argue from a consensus position and then accuse us of bias. That's hilarious.
Saying like when you
what
have
is
two
illogical
biased-
or irrational about it? About the flat
two
Earth?
sides are
Can you explain
biased.
it?
You get the truth when the two biased sides agree. Is more
No,
closer
you
to the
don't.
truth.
That's a fallacy.
God doesn't even
Got
know
back
what
in.
What fallacy is it? Nummy num.
Well,
Identify the fallacy.
it's the fallacy of false dichotomy.
Do you
No, it's
understand what a
not.
false? Do you understand what a false? Do you understand what a false dichotomy is, P?
It's not a fallacy.
No. Do you understand what a
Is
false?
that a fallacy? Yeah, it is.
It's a false dichotomy. Do you understand what that is?
Not
A false dichotomy.
I understand what a false dichotomy is.
What's a false dichotomy?
It's like when you're getting presented with two scenarios and like you have to pick one, but it's not. There's more than one. There's more than
Yeah,
two
exactly.
answers.
So
Close enough.
that's exactly what we're saying. You're saying
But
that.
that's not the logical fallacy I was making, which I wasn't making. But whatever.
Yeah, it is actually.
No,
Right.
it's not. I said two biased sides, and then when they agree, that's where we can discern reality. Is when you have two biased parties, but if they both agree on something, it's probably closer to the truth where they agree.
It's probably the truth. Does that make any logical sense to you?
Well, that's like saying like.
Or do you not care about the truth?
It does make sense to me, you silly person.
You said probably, you clown. You said probably the truth.
It probably makes sense to me, you silly
That is
individual.
logical. It is it is illogical. You have to say probably.
Highly illogical.
You guys need to kick Pete out. You know he's here just to troll. Just kick him out. He's not
Welcome
listening,
here.
and
He's
it's-
welcome.
This
Don't
guy
kick
just
anybody
said
out.
probably true, and he's asserting as facts.
Right. I'm asserting as a fact.
Let him clown around and just reveal.
I'm not clowning. You guys are hilarious, dude.
Reveals the
I'm not
logic.
trolling you. You
You
guys are
honestly just
trolling.
make yourself
You guys
look
are,
stupid.
you guys are acting like
I think his
this
matrix is breaking. I think he's realizing that the Earth is flat. He doesn't know how to handle it. This guy's
Yeah.
having a nervous breakdown on camera.
Right, dude. I've done more research into how we're indoctrinated and programmed and mind controlled than you. You probably don't. You probably can't even spell Bertrand Russell.
P-Miles, let me ask you a question. Would you realize or would you know if you were brainwashed?
If you're brainwashed, well, you would not think you're brainwashed, right?
Right. So how do you know that you're not brainwashed?
I know that I'm brainwashed. I study brainwashing. I know how we are programmed and indoctrinated, and I'm working my way through the programming, and I'm trying to figure out what opinions are my own and what have been given to me through the school system, through the entertainment industry.
But you just said that you wouldn't know. You would think that you were not brainwashed. So how would you know if you
I never said I'm not brainwashed.
Step one is you have to understand fallacies, right? So you're doing like a piss poor job of unbrainwashing yourself.
Step one is you have to understand fallacies.
Yeah. You have to
You said-
understand.
What any other conspiracies do you believe in?
All of them except for flat Earth.
Oh, because you come of it from the cult point of view. You come of it from these people are in a cult. Is that your point of view?
Well, I just need evidence to believe something, and you
Yeah,
know,
that's my
most
position.
conspiracies have
Okay,
evidence.
but if you need evidence,
Whereas flat Earth has zero evidence. To
if you
support
need
it.
evidence, forget about the flat Earth. Have you ever researched the globe Earth? Have you ever researched the shit you believe?
Hell yeah, I have.
So what evidence have you found to support curvature or axial rotation or gravity?
You guys know.
No, there's absolutely zero evidence supporting the globe Earth model.
And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible, and also a massive thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully for sharing this debate. If you hated the show, you know what to do, but if you liked it, consider sharing it. Maybe subscribing if you've not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!